You will make an impact on the reader even before they read a single word. So presentation can easily mean the difference between success and failure.
The great mistake an awful lot of people make with page one is they start at the wrong end of their CV. So they spend far too much time giving out background information like full clean driving license, the longest possible version of your address, qualifications, school history, maybe even some personal information. It's all a waste of time on page one. You need to cut to the chase, get as quickly as possible into the opening statement, which is either a profile about you or it's some bullet points talking about your key skills and achievements.
Don't bother putting curriculum vitae. We know it's a CV. You don't need to do that.
First of all, the name you use, and that's the name you'd like to be called in the interview room. Don't put your middle name, don't put any qualifications after your name. Keep it short and simple. And the same thing with your address. If you can compress your address into a couple of lines, that's great, because it means you're really using page one effectively. The email address should be an address that you check regularly, at least twice a day, and the contact telephone number is one that will reach you pretty quickly.
Now, presentation is, of course, a personal issue, and some people will inherently prefer certain fonts to other fonts. But it's important to realise that the easiest to read fonts are the ones which will get you the positive presentation points. Now, I often recommend Times New Roman because whilst it might be a little old-fashioned, it's clear, easy to read, and has been proven to get results. But I also recommend fonts such as Verdana and Arial because they're often seen as more contemporary and they often look better on a computer screen.
After you've mentioned your job title and the name of the organisation you work for, you need to ask yourself the question, will the reader understand what kind of organisation this is?
That if you work for a smaller company, the chances are the reader is not aware of who that company is, what size it is, and what it does. And indeed, if you're working for a division of a major multinational, that's not always the case. So you need to have that very shortest of descriptions. And the most important thing here is to quantify it. To quantify the size of the organisation, quantify the size of your job. Put some numbers there, whatever they are.
Sometimes the name of the organisation is quite long, so if you can use a slightly abbreviated version, fit it all onto one line, it looks a lot better.
We then want to see a very short description of what you have been responsible for. And you support that with bullet points of what you have achieved in that role.
Use important words on the left-hand side of the page. Because we know from the way people read and understand advertisements, they are more likely to pick up critical text if it is in the left-hand side of the page.
And although it can be difficult, try hard to avoid repetition. This is especially the case with the starting words of bullet points because that stands out much more to the eye than other kinds of repetition. So within any one list of bullet points, try to start each bullet point with a different word. And within any one paragraph, try not to use the same adjective, adverb or action verb twice.
Varying the length of your bullet points, because what is very difficult to absorb in a CV is a large block of text in relatively small print. So say less, say it better, and lay it out in such a way that the reader is invited to keep reading.
Because there's nothing worse than seeing succeeded in, succeeded in, succeeded in. And also for me, I would say stay away from using the word I, because it's not all about you, it's about the environment that you worked in. And although the CV is clearly about you, the employer doesn't want to hear that.
Do remember it's not supposed to be a chopped up job description. People are not actually that interested in the details of the organisation and where your job fitted in and what the organisation does. You should cover that in about a line and a half. And then 5, 6, maybe 7 good, strong bullet points about what you added to the job. Not what the job required you to do, but the value you put on top of it.
There is a simple 3-step process to deciding how you are going to describe something. Firstly, you need to think of the event. What is it, what project was it, whatever, that I was working on. Secondly, you need to quantify it, to say I was working with 5 other people and we were working with a £1 million budget, whatever it is. And thirdly, and most importantly, we want to know what the outcome was. We achieved whatever in terms of that project.
I've seen CVs where there's been no white paper, it's just been almost like an essay has been written, which, and as a recruiter, we don't have time to read all of it, to ones that have been on numerous pages with huge white gaps.
What occasionally happens is that page 2 or page 3 of your CV may become disconnected. Amongst lots of applications, it's quite difficult to put those documents back together again. So as a simple tip, I would say keep your name and either a contact telephone number or your email address printed next to the page number at the bottom or the top of each page of your CV.
Because it's nothing worse than when you print out the first 2 pages of a CV, the phone goes, you leave your desk, you come back, you pick up the second page, you go, oh my God, he's perfect. What's his name? What's his telephone number? He matches the job spec. How the hell am I going to call him?
A recruiter does not need to know whether or not you're married, how many children you have, what your partner's name is, where you normally go on holiday, what you like to have for breakfast. These facts do not affect whether or not you can do the job. In fact, since the introduction of the Employment Equality Age Regulations in 2006, you shouldn't even include your date of birth in your CV anymore.
The best CV that I ever saw was actually of a top board level executive. He'd managed to get his entire CV onto one page, beautifully laid out with lots of white space, but he'd used nice short sentences that left you wanting more. And that's what your CV is. It's a sales document that needs to leave the person wanting more.